He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
This is the Alex Marlow Show. Thanks for joining me today. Really appreciate all of you being here. All of you subscribing is the main thing, so you don't miss a show. So it just shows right up there in your feed, doing incredibly well. All thanks to all of you. Please tell 10,000 friends and family members about us. Even those comments, 5-star reviews, all that's very helpful, helping us grow. Monster numbers continue to get put up on the Rumble platform. I've been hearing that people are really enjoying the video element of the show. So if you are inclined to watch it on video, I'm told producer Misty is doing a great job on that. So it's my preference is just to listen, but a lot of people are liking the video. So by all means, head over to Rumble or YouTube. Look for the Alex Marlow Show, and you can watch it there, and you can look at some of the cool visuals Misty's putting up. And you can see what shirt I'm wearing, which is a much bigger stress for me, and how my hair came out that day. I've been told that no one knows what kind of hair is going to show up for me on any given day. I wouldn't say I have bad hair. I definitely have difficult hair. It's difficult. It's odd. So we start the show. I will, another plug for something I'm doing. I had a very funny night last night because I was on Laura Ingram's show, and it was a very odd thing because the whole saga of being on TV it's quite complicated and it's not for everyone. And I was very negative on it until recently, but we've just become this very visual era where if you're not using the TV medium, then you're not really optimizing what you're doing. And I have to say, I really do attribute some of that change of heart that I've had to Donald Trump. I was all about print and I was all about radio for my whole life, really. But I'm just increasingly understanding that if you're not a visual presence in people's lives, that a lot of people, you're not going to reach them, which is funny for me because I grew up reading articles and listening to talk radio, and that's how I got informed. But it's just the way of the world. And when Primetime Fox wants to have you on, you got to say yes. And Laura is amazing, one of the original America First people in the world. So she reaches out. And she says that, come on, I want to talk about the COP29 summit that's going on. I'm like, COP29 summit? That's the UN thing on climate change? Yeah. She says there's a wacky guy who wants us all to eat bugs. And then that sounds about right. And he's saying all this crazy stuff about how we need climate reparations. And let's talk about that. And I said, okay, that's not really what I'm focused on right now, but let's do it. So I get immersed in it, and I go to Frances Martel, our world editor of Breitbart News, and I say, hey, Frances, what's going on over there? And she said, oh, there's a lot of fun stuff going on. Really, this is all about a UN effort to try to ban the meat industry. And they want to hit their climate goals, and the only way they're going to do that is if they're putting a huge tax on meat so that the meat industry goes away. So it's basically a de facto ban by way of mass taxation. And that's what they're going to do. That's what they're trying to do. And it's important to warn that those of you who don't like eating bugs. And I've never eaten bugs out of principle. Maybe they're delicious. The Washington Post tells me every time that the cicadas are out that you do like a Szechuan sauce and bugs could be delicious. I'm not into it because I know this is a manipulation by the people who want the beef industry to go away. And I love beef. It's pretty much my favorite thing, I have to say. There's nothing makes me much happier than beef. So I'm not into it. And then if you look at the lineup that the UN has trotted out, you start seeing these odd things, like they got the Taliban there. And why is the Taliban there when they're trying to fight for climate justice? Do you think the Taliban cares at all? And also noteworthy, the event is taking place in Baku, Azerbaijan. Fun fact, Breitbart fact, Andrew Breitbart once went to Baku at Azerbaijan. But it's a huge fossil fuel state that's got expanding natural gas production. And they're expanding because Europe and Russia has a demand for their natural gas and their ability to create energy. So they basically are hosting the event and they're hijacking it and they're singing the praises of fossil fuels, natural gas, et cetera. And this is making the greenies really mad because the greenies at the UN are the ones who are the driving force behind all these UN initiatives. And then they go to this country and they're saying, no, we're going to be pumping old school fuel into Europe, et cetera, because your guys' economies are not great and you need us. So John Podesta showed up over there, and I just wonder if he booked that ticket when he thought the Democrats were going to win because he's totally irrelevant now. There's no one who's going to have less of a voice in terms of American political life than John Podesta over the next 4 years. He's just got to bide his time. This is a guy who's long time tied into all elements of the institutional left, the Soros wing, the Clinton wing, et cetera. And he's over there. And he was a guy that promised Kamala wasn't just going to win, but was going to win Iowa. I think, oh no, I'm confusing that. I don't know if that was Podesta, but anyway, he was promising Harris was going to win. He knew Harris was going to win. And it's just all these people who are bubbled and who pay attention to the Alan Lichtmans of the world, the people who are predicting, the Nostradamus who said that, of course, Harris was going to win, even though all the evidence seemed to suggest Trump was going to win, especially in retrospect, but really even ahead of time. You guys heard my prediction. I thought Trump was going to win. We're going to know election night. So anyway, I'm going through this process and I'm thinking, all right, I could talk about eating bugs and I can talk about the UN humiliating themselves and how they're just trying to scam rich countries who are feeling guilt to pay climate reparations for their fossil fuel usage. That's fun. We'll have fun with that. And then I get the call saying, we're not doing that. We're actually going to talk about something else. And I go, okay, well, I can move at my feet. Let's do that. So they give me the topics, and the topics are how terrible the Democrats are doing, how they're melting down. I say, hey, okay, that's my language. It's all we've been doing on the show the last few days. I know how bad the Democrats are melting down. I got some fun talking points on that, how they're struggling to figure out what went wrong and the fact that they were so bubbled. And that woman in Iowa who said Kamala was going to win by 3 points and then she lost by 12 points, and how, Ted Cruz is going to have a double-digit win in Texas, even though they said Democrats could win Texas. These guys are off their rockers, and we can have so much fun with this. And they've not come to terms with how bad things are going to be for them in the near future. They're kind of leaning on Hakeem Jeffries as their leader, the guy who would have been the Speaker of the House had they won the House. But he was a guy who said that Trump committed racial arson. So he's not a unifying voice. That's the type of rhetoric that Americans rejected. And so long as there's Breitbart around, as long as there's places like my show, then we're going to continue to point this stuff out, that these guys are not trustworthy. They're not unifiers. They're just purely political freaks and do not deserve a moment of sympathy or trust from our side, the side that won. So we could talk about that. And we could talk about how they're, going through their Kubler-Ross stages of grief, that they're in denial now, downplaying the effects of the election. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was out there saying it really isn't that bad. It's like, oh yeah, it's bad, baby. It's bad, real bad. And it's only going to get worse. And then we saw that with the cabinet selections that we've learned about. We'll hear that next. But this is just a huge rejection of the last 4 years, really the last 8 years, the way they conducted themselves during the first Trump administration as well. And what are they doing? They're now contesting the Pennsylvania election, where you got Bob Casey and Mark Elias, who are election deniers. They're subverting the democratic process. And we need a committee. We need a J6 style committee to investigate their determination to overthrow the democratic process in Pennsylvania with that Senate race. Democracy is under attack from Bob Casey and from Mark Elias. So, okay, that's fun. It's and then I get to studio. So I show up, I get to studio, and right as we're getting in, all this breaking news is happening, and I'm sitting there and I'm in the chair, and my earpiece dies. And so if you guys want to see something very amusing, then you can pull down Laura Ingram's show from last night. If it's online, it'd be great. If not, you gotta start DVRing these things, because I'm showing up at least once a week. And I cannot hear a word she's saying. And I'm sitting there smiling like a buffoon, and I'm going, I cannot hear you, Laura. I cannot. No, I'm so sorry. There's nothing I can do here. I have no idea what's going on. In fact, I don't know if you're talking to me or someone else, and I don't know if I'm interrupting you. I couldn't hear anything. And I'm sitting there in front of millions of people, just smiling like a doofus. But, you got to summon your inner strength within. You've really got to feel it out and think that the temptation is just to rip off your headphone and to push aside the microphone, to yell at everyone within earshot. But you can't do that, because that'd be terrible TV, and that'd be a viral moment in a negative way. And she's got to sit there and suck it up and hope it's not that bad. So then finally they figure out my earpiece and they throw it to me, and they're asking me about breaking news, which is that Pete Hegseth of Fox News is now going to be in charge of the Pentagon. Guy's 44 years old and was running a morning show as of a day and a half ago, and is now going to be running one of our biggest bureaucracies and most important bureaucracies. And what am I to think of this? And I've got to formulate this thing on the fly, because while I'm very networked in Trump world, I did not see this one coming. And overall, I go with, well, let's just roll with it. Let's just be very positive. And you can pull down my response, but it was very positive. Everyone likes Pete. That was my take. Everyone likes Pete. And I knew about his background because I'm a student of media and who's a good communicator, and he's an exceptional communicator. And I looked at him down the road, and he is way more qualified than everyone who's on cable news today thinks. He has degrees from Harvard and Princeton. He's got 7 kids. He started out in, I think it was the National Guard. He ended up serving for 20 years, combat veteran. And this is a very impressive person, and a person with a deep activist streak, which I love. He's called out the woke generals more than anyone. And he's very bright. If you've heard him interviewed, not just as an interviewer and seeing his presentation, he's a good presenter, but he's got a lot to say, and he's clearly done a lot of deep thought about this country. So I'm good with it. And I also find it to be amazing, and this is what I was reveling in at the time. I'm reveling in the fact that he's going to tick off all the right people. So hold that thought. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So then anyway, I'm sitting there in the chair, and they say, guess what? We might come back to you. That's never happened to me before, where I've done 2 cable news hits in a row. And so now I'm sitting there fumbling with my phone, trying to figure out what's going on in the world, seeing what type of thing I'm going to have to weigh in on in front of millions of people that I wasn't aware of until moments ago, which is, it's not for everyone. I found it very fun, very exhilarating, very exciting, but I didn't know what they were going to ask, but they were saying, wait, and you might come back on and talk about something. We don't know what it is. Okay. I think I'm ready for that. And lo and behold, more breaking news. The DOGE office has been created with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. They're going to start some sort of a commission. I'll bring this up again in a moment. That is going to clean up the U.S. government, and they're going to do it. They're the guys to do it. So a lot of you who follow my stuff know that I'm sort of skeptical of some of Musk's stuff. I think that he's a self-promoter. I think that he's done a lot of huge business with China that I'm skeptical of. A lot of it involves Chinese government, Chinese military. And I think that China is very hopeful that Musk will be able to, temper some of Donald Trump's aggression towards China. And that concerns me. But overall, I think he's convincing me that he's on board with the MAGA agenda. I think he's on board with Donald Trump. And I think that ideologically, he really is making a shift. It's hard to know with a guy who's that clever of a marketer. He's the best marketer of our time, other than maybe Donald Trump. Those are the 2 guys in terms of marketing. And that makes me a little skeptical, but he's convincing me, and I love this role for him. So it's unbelievable that I get to weigh in on the fly on a Fox News guy running the Pentagon and Elon Musk being in charge of a new government agency, or so we think. I don't even have time to verify if this stuff is real. I have to take their word for it. It was a wild, wild night. So I start there because that is truly one of the weirdest things I've ever gone through, but in a very positive way. And I thought I would share that with all of you because this is the Alex Marlow Show, and that's what I'm up to these days. So then I get rewarded with an hour and 50-minute car ride in traffic from West Los Angeles to my home north of LA. So fun day, and one that I will not be forgetting anytime soon. I want to give you some more detail and some of my thoughts on what we're learning about the Trump cabinet and some of the things that he's up to. And it's really all positive. I like the Hegseth pick. We were going to get some oddball picks from Trump. And it's a matter of, are they oddball in terms of he's getting some globalists or some old friends from Wall Street or some people who are not committed conservatives or people who have donated largely to his campaign? Are we getting those people in these key roles, or are we getting people who we think are pretty pure of heart? And Hegseth is, I think, pure of heart. I think this guy really is a patriot. And I think he's intellectual. And the point that one of my family members made to me, which I think is important, we're going to make America handsome again. It's the new Maha. So not make America healthy again. He's a good looking guy. He just is. I could say that. I'm comfortable enough to say that. Impeccable shape. It is, I think at this point in my life, because he's got a bunch of kids, he's got a big job in his mid 40s. I'm less impressed by the Ivy League degrees than the fact that I think he's got the single-digit body fat. I think that's hard to do and takes a lot of discipline. So clearly disciplined person, likable person, great communicator. And traditionally with the Pentagon, even though it's one of the biggest bureaucracies and he's going to have to get some real knowledgeable deputies to help run the operations, what I'm optimistic about with this role is that it is something where traditionally you do like an outsider to come in and lead it. Because having that I think, ability to see from the perspective from the rest of the country is good. I think it's a good thing. And I think if you get it traditionally wasn't someone with a big military background, particularly not these generals, a type of Lloyd Austin type that Biden would put in. That's not who we want. We don't want deep staters. We don't want people who came from the board of Raytheon to do it. That's been the whole problem in this country, is that we're getting people who are in a revolving door from the defense contractors to the U.S. government and our bureaucracy. That is the problem right now. So if you got a guy who was a talk show host, but who's a professional paying attention to this, someone who's been an advocate for veterans, someone who has been on the forefront of calling out the woke generals that are disgracing our armed forces. We still have the greatest army in the world, I'm sure of it, but there's no way we're going in the right direction with all these generals the way they are now. So that's what we're getting, and I'm cool with it. I can live with that, and in fact, it might even be great. But the thing that was the best is you knew it was going to make all the right people melt down. And thus, we turned to some of the clips. Here's what was going on over on CNN. Let's roll this one.
This is such a serious time in the world and arguably the most serious cabinet position. I just don't think he's a serious person. From, I think, an unserious president who dodged the draft 5 times, called our troops suckers and losers, fundamentally misunderstands what selfless service is about, and insulted Gold Star families and Medal of Honor recipients. And sadly, this is not surprising to me, but it's
you guys are hearing
concerning.
This is Congressman Pat Ryan, who doesn't think Pete Hegseth is a serious person. Ladies and gentlemen, the guy went to Harvard and Princeton. The guy served his country for 20 years. The guy's a very popular talk show host. He's an advocate for veterans. He's a very serious person. You might want someone who's spent more time in the deep state if you're a Democrat, but this guy's not a joker. This guy's a serious guy. This guy's living his life in a very thorough manner. So don't we like winners in this country? Or is it just, why isn't there any semblance of balance? Why is it always, let's get a guy to come on and do some generic outrage? Do these guys ever watch Fox and Friends one time? Once? I'm sure he hasn't. All right. Don Lemon, who was another CNN person who is now moved on to the X platform, he weighed in on all this. We were all waiting for Don Lemon's take, correct? That was it. That was the first thing. I couldn't wait to get out of the chair, take the headpiece off from Laura's show so I could go on and I could see what Don Lemon was saying about Pete.
So at first I saw the Associated Press and I saw this headline: Trump nominates Fox News host Pete Hegseth for defense secretary. And I said, the AP must have been hacked. And then I saw this: an official statement from Donald Trump saying, I am honored to announce that I have nominated Pete Hegseth to serve in my cabinet as the Secretary of Defense. What? At first, some of these folks, these nominations, I said, okay, or appointments, all right, they're a little extreme, but there were some normal people in there, kind of normal, like Marco Rubio or Mike Waltz, a couple of, just regular old Republicans in there. But Pete Hegseth.
People underestimate the power of being in front of Donald Trump every day. It makes a difference. A lot of people want to be on Fox News, not because they love Fox so much, but because they know Trump watches. Trump's the most powerful person in the world. He likes the television medium. That's his favorite medium. He does radio. He puts out his tweets or his truth bombs, but he loves television medium. So you get marginalized on being on TV, especially if you're a guy like Don Lemon who's on TV. So it's just, it's awesome. It's awesome. And I'm just very pleased that they're giving us all this content. It just makes me like Pete even more. Jen Psaki over on MSNBC, she's outraged as well.
I think there is a net benefit in having cabinet members. I can tell you from having had lots of communications roles who can go on television. What I will tell you, though, is that is far from a top 20 characteristic or quality that you need for the Secretary of Defense. And if he really likes him so much, yes, he has served, and maybe he could be the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Maybe he could do something else. The Secretary of Defense is somebody who oversees the men and women serving around the world. It's not about someone who is good on TV and is fighting woke or cultural issues, which clearly Pete has some views on. It's about somebody who knows how to strategically have a seat at the table in the Situation Room. Does he have that background?
She's just talking. She's not saying anything. He's an advocate for veterans. That's what he does. The guy just stands up for veterans. He runs veterans organizations. This is his whole point. is that he thinks that the people who serve are being betrayed by the upper echelons of the American armed forces. That's his whole identity in terms of his advocacy. They're just blabbing. They don't come with informed takes. Look, there's a lot of things that go into being a good TV presenter, but being an informed person, it's got to be one of them, right, Jen? She doesn't even know what she's talking about. By the way, being a good communicator in our modern times where everything is about communication, you got to rank it a little higher than top 20, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be number one, but it'd be pretty high up there. MSNBC meltdowns continue. Here's a fella named Sam Stein. Let's see how this goes.
Sort of amazed by how staid the conversation has been to this point about Hegseth, because if we're being frank about it, the reason he is picked is because he's on Fox and Friends, right? Like, and this is true of a number of these picks, right? Mike Walls also happened to be the congressman who had appeared on Fox more than any other sitting Republican member of Congress in the past 2 years. These people grab.
This is chicken and egg, and they're just being ignorant for intentionally. This has got to be intentionally being ignorant. How did Pete get on Fox and Friends? He got on Fox and Friends because he has a great background. Why is Fox and Friends so powerful? Because Trump watches TV. So you can't criticize people for getting in front of the guy who's trying to message to the president of the United States. This is why one of the themes on the show this week, and will continue to be a theme, is how the Democrats' playbook is spent. It's just shot. They don't have anything. These are not arguments that are going to convince people, because Trump picked a lot of Fox people for his administration last time. He picked Breitbart people for his administration last time. He's going to continue to do that. If you look at the lineup of who he's putting in his cabinet thus far, these are all people who appear on Breitbart. These are all people who go on our radio shows. These are all people who give us exclusive breaking news. Imagine what they're going to think when that dawns on them. That these are the people, these are the Breitbart all-stars. Imagine that. I hope that soundbite doesn't get out. Or maybe I do. I don't know. But that's who he's putting in there. Let's continue.
People grab Trump's attention because of their television appearances. He's drawn to the idea that they can present on a medium that he loves. Contemporaneous reporting, I should say reporting from last night, suggests that the Hegseth decision was done in a matter of 24 hours, that there's internal confusion about it. Similarly with Noam a little bit, people are wondering what kind of credentials she has to run DHS, which also, we should note, oversees FEMA response.
The credentials Kristi Noem has is that she's very well liked, that she's a killer, she's tough, and she's not going to be cowed by media pressure, because a thankless job at DHS, everyone's going to hate her, and she's someone who can handle that because she's tough. Okay, Sam? In case you're curious, do they ever bother to reach out to anyone who might follow these people's careers? They just don't care, right? CNN tries that every once in a while, where they try to bring in someone who at least talks to people who are on the conservative movement. We like these people. They're good for us. They work. And we don't think there's some other person, some sort of deep state who's been in Washington their whole life who fits the bills better than these people. We just don't. I will comment on, a lot of people are somewhat disappointed that Tulsi Gabbard didn't get the spot that Hegseth got. I like Tulsi, as I've said, and I think she's amazing American, and I think she would have been good, but I don't see it as a necessity. I also have an issue with, I don't trust people who are Democrats. I just don't. And it's just I paid attention enough in my life to know that no good things come from the Democrat Party. And she's a Democrat congresswoman for 8 years, and that's a strike against her for me. She has very few strikes against her. Other than that, she's amazing. But I do find that that's a sign. Anyone who can stay in the Democrat Party for that long makes me wonder. All right, other stuff that's going on. DOGE. This is the Department of Government Efficiency. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to be running this. I wonder what Vivek thinks of that. It's part of it is, I guess he gets to be Musk's apprentice to some way, but Vivek is a huge success. But the Musk net worth is probably 300 times Vivek's. It's kind of funny how that is. But it's the main thing for me. What is this thing actually? The Department of Government Efficiency. There's this joke with DOGE. DOGE is this meme where, what is it? It's a Shiba Inu. It's this adorable dog that has this confused look on his face online, and it's great. It's a hilarious picture, and Musk is very enamored with that sort of juvenile humor sometimes, and whatever, let him live his best life. So, and then there was a Doge coin, which is a crypto, which is of course soaring right now. And so that's where I think Musk got the idea, because he likes that cutesy branding stuff. So, but the bottom line is it's designed to try to figure out where is the fat in the government and to cut it out. And I'm in on that. So the government, we know there's waste. We're conservatives. We're all aware of this. And we all know that there's only incentive if you're in the government to increase the size of the government. No one gets to the government and thinks, how do I get less powerful? So the idea of having an outsized entity that is still working under the president to meticulously go through each and every branch to try to pinpoint the fat and to cut it out, that's a great thing. Musk had, I think, volunteered originally that he wants to do this. And I really like this role for him. And we can spend at a different date. I can go through why I think we should keep our guard up with him and where I think that this could go sideways on us. But overall, Musk has a great track record in this specific type of style of running a business. And if you start looking at the government like a business, then he's a perfect guy to do this. I take, for example, the X platform, formerly known as Twitter. Musk blows out 80% of people who are there, and the platform gets more powerful. Now, if you want to spend a long time on it, and I'm sure some of you do, I have some issues with the current iteration of X, and I don't think it's better in 100% of the ways as it was from when it was run by left-wing radicals. But overall, it runs fine, and it's arguably better, and it's certainly more powerful, and it's certainly something that Musk was able to do that with 20% of the staffing. So if you're a government bureaucrat, if you're a deep stater, it is time to get your resumes ready. It really is, because he's going to come in, he's going to clean house. And Vivek is obviously a go-getter. He's a hard worker and he wants to be out there. There's going to be huge marketing, huge brand equity for this thing. So my main question was, is this even legal? Can you create a new department out of whole cloth? And I asked my legal beagles, or is it legal eagles? What do they call it? I like legal beagles. We'll use that at Breitbart. Is this even a legal thing to do? And what they told me was that it will be legal to give essentially recommendations. You can't create a new department, a literal department, unless it's approved by Congress. But an advisory commission can be stood up by the president, probably by an executive order. And what the plan is, it appears, is sometime in 2026, July 4th, I think was what they offered up. They're going to have a huge comprehensive report on where things need to be cut. And then they're going to work with the Office of Management and Budget, and then they're going to do the cutting. And that's going to be it. And that's going to be where we're at. And I think that that is it just works for me. It works great. It's something that if it does not succeed, then we say, oh, that didn't work. But if it does succeed, we're talking about perhaps a historic realignment of the U.S. government, historic levels of efficiency, and being able to get people less government-centric in this country. The government is by far our biggest employer at this point. It's not even close, and we're not even including all those government contracts that are dependent entirely on government money. It's just too much, and we need to have a radical reassessment of this. And Musk is probably the guy to do it if there ever was one. And if he's fired up about it, let's do it. Let's get it done. Let's get it done fast, and let's cut some fat finally, after my whole life of hearing about it. So it's very cool, very exciting. Okay, another executive order that's likely to come down. Purging of generals. This one sounds like another one, which he can't really do that, can he? Could he really pull this off? A draft executive order would create a board that would purge the woke generals, according to reports. Wall Street Journal has this report, and I will tell you, I asked my legal beagles again, what's going on here? Is he going to get away with this? And I was told not only is he going to get away with this, but this was written by the creme de la creme in terms of Trump's inner circle legally. These are serious guys. This memo was written a long time ago, that this is going to happen, by people who know exactly what they're doing. So we're going to get a group to come in and to assess who are the wokest of the woke, who are the people who installing the DEI nonsense, the people who want to learn all about white rage instead of how to build a stronger military. And those people are going to go. They're going to get the boot. And hopefully we know all their names, because it's historic risk that we're running, that we're taking the greatest armed forces in the history of the world and we're watering it down with woke nonsense. This is part of peace through strength. Part of the way for us to stay out of wars and to not have to be interventionist is if we're strong enough to intimidate, to be able to be the 800-pound gorilla that can push our weight around. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. So that's good news. I've got some not as good news, I have to say, which is that we just got, as we're coming on to record here, John Thune elected the Senate Republican leader, a tight race. It's a secret ballot. We know the first ballot was Rick Scott got allegedly 13 votes and John Cornyn got 15, which sent it to a runoff, and Thune got across the finish line in the runoff. It seems like most of Scott's votes went to, I guess they split. Scott's vote split. So this is a tough one. John Thune is a McConnell guy. He's someone who was McConnell's choice. He's the establishment pick, and he's not someone who I ever worked with very closely. And I think that it is not a great thing. This is bad news in the scheme of things. I think Scott would have been the right choice. And I think that Cornyn, not as competent as Thune, but is someone who, again, facing that primary in 2026, I'd be more optimistic he could be susceptible to some outside pressure. I will say that Thune is aware that he's going to have to work with the America First movement. I was just looking through our archives at Breitbart, and he gave us an exclusive report criticizing Kamala's broadband czar failures and her border failures with us. This was just a few weeks ago. It was in September. So he led a big letter criticizing how that she was in charge of broadband and did a disastrous job there, tying it in with her disastrous job at the border. Sent this to Breitbart exclusively. So, he's aware he's got to play to our audience. And I look at this, I'll say this often for those of you who miss shows. It's not just that I want to promote Breitbart. Of course, I want to promote Breitbart. But the issue is I do feel like that as the biggest conservative news outlet in print, the fastest way to distribute credible information on the right, and just tunning it in traffic, by the way. I saw some online trash talk about us. Our traffic is up something like 15% since the 2016 election. It's just amazing stuff. And looking at our revenue soaring, amazing stuff happening at Breitbart. And that's all thanks to all of you tuning in, refreshing, going to Breitbart.com, getting the app, subscribing to the Fight Club. So thank you to all of you who are doing that. But it is, you got to go and talk to our audience or you're not going to get stuff done. So he's at least aware of that. But he was a guy who originally liked the open borders deal that ultimately fell apart this summer. He was someone who called for Trump to stand aside after the Access Hollywood grab him by the P-word tape came out. That was a real litmus test for me. I never waffled for 1 second on that. I never thought it would make any difference in the election. And it's a great way of assessing who's got backbone, who doesn't. Who jumped off the board then? And everyone who did, you got to keep an eye on them. You really do. So, and some of them have really come around, but that was a real test because the Americans who care about the border and too many foreign wars and bad trade deals, they never cared about that tape. They don't care about locker room talk. I will say that Mark Wayne Mullen, senator from Oklahoma, told, I guess this was Semaphore, which is a media publication run by a guy named Ben Smith, that Thune is not McConnell. He has a different type of leadership style than that. I've seen the way he is led when McConnell went down and he wasn't able to be there, and I really enjoyed his leadership role or leadership style. That's encouraging. Mullen is very much someone who I'm aligned with on the issues. So I've got high hopes, but I'm mostly in a good mood here. I'm feeling good. We're winning, taking names at the moment. But we're going to have to keep an eye on that, and I bring that to you as negative news. One other negative thing that's apolitical today, our friend Dennis Prager apparently suffered a serious back injury following a fall. He's resting at an LA hospital. Doctors are assessing treatment options, and the PragerU staff is going to keep us informed. I just want to always shout out Dennis and say how much he means to me, and not just all the whole Salem crew, but me as an individual. I love Dennis, and I will pray for him. The healing power of prayer is real. So I encourage all of you to say a prayer for Dennis today. All right, back to some winning here. The UK Guardian's no longer going to post on X. So this is where I'm all in on it. Look, the original version of Twitter, and part of when I say that Twitter hasn't necessarily gotten better, is it used to be a pretty reliable place to compile what left-wing media was thinking about. And now I have to go to all their various front pages, which is less convenient for me. So it's a bit of a personal thing there. But if you hear me griping about Twitter, that's part of it. It is that I used to be able to just open up Twitter and then say, okay, here's what the left is thinking, because it was a sewing circle for them. Now it's not. And that's fine. So they're leaving now. They're going to take their ball and go home, and they're just going to talk to their own bubble, and they're going to influence fewer people. So The Guardian, which is a UK publication that I visit every single day to figure out what the beating heart of the left is thinking, they're going to stop posting there on the editorial account on X because they're whiners and they're bitter and they don't want to play a Musk sandbox. Jamie Lee Curtis, who has been a distraction in so many of my favorite horror movies. So we haven't enough time to hang out as a group yet on the Alex Marlow Show because there's so much news these days. But eventually we'll have slower shows that I can talk to you about some of what I do in my spare time. But I'm a big horror movie guy. And Jamie Lee Curtis is not a great actress. And she's in so many of the movies that I like other than her presence in them. And I'm very happy to see her quit X. Who cares? I don't need any more Jamie Lee Curtis. But you know what? This is going to backfire on me because I get so much of their content when they tweet stupid stuff. I take it back. I'm sad now. I'm sad she's leaving because she tweets dumb stuff and then I get to put it up at Breitbart and I get money and traffic off of that. Nancy Pelosi says she's doing terrible. She was emailed by CNN's Manu Raju how she's doing. She gave a one-word answer, terrible. It's kind of fun. Trump's naming more advisors to the cabinet. All good names. Dan Scavino, who's famous for running Trump's Twitter account when it was at its peak. A campaign political director named James Blair, who I'm unfamiliar with. Taylor Budowich, a deputy chief of staff who I also don't know personally, but is, I'm told, top-notch, a real mover and shaker in Trump world, and someone who also works closely with us at Breitbart. Stephen Miller, formerly tapped as deputy chief of staff. All good stuff. Good news. Lots of good news. I want to bring lots of good news. One thing that is incredible that we're witnessing is that I was concerned, and I've said this openly, this is one where maybe I'm taking an L on this, but it's a good L to take. I was concerned that when Trump was going through this lawfare, that it was going to intimidate people from wanting to work with him, wanting to go into his cabinet. And now what I'm hearing in what I'm seeing with my own two eyes is that the top-notch people on our side are actually rallying around Trump. Tom Homan said thousands of retired ICE agents and police officers are reaching out to him to help restore order. Thousands. This is breaking today. And he said this on my friend David Webb show in SiriusXM. It's just so cool. It's the fact that people want to come back in the fold, knowing that they could get sued, knowing that they're going to get targeted personally. And people are saying now is the time to stand up, is the time to stand up for this country. And it is just, it makes your heart swell. It really does. It makes you feel like that you're not alone. And I feel like so often in this world that when I'm the most upset, it's when I'm feeling alone. I'm feeling isolated. It's on a personal level. I think a lot of males feel this way. Probably all of you do. But when you start seeing stuff like that, it really heartens you. It really makes you think that something as beautiful is happening in this country. A restoration is happening where people are going to take up their roles and they're going to bravely and boldly take them on. Good stuff. A lot of good winning on the court front with Donald Trump that I'm tempted to get into now, but it could be a bit of a rabbit hole. And so I'm not sure I want to take all the time today just because I don't want to make these shows too long. So you keep listening, you keep downloading. So we'll hold that. But I've got a big rundown on all this winning that's going on in terms of the lawfare against Trump. Some of it continues, so I'll try to do that on tomorrow's show. But let's turn to some of your comments. Again, I'm checking out all the various places you can leave a comment. Some of you are leaving really nice reviews on Apple Podcasts. That's very helpful to me. aloha@alexmarlow.com. If you have a question, comment, and leaving comments on YouTube and Rumble. I'm trying to read those as well. And I want to make you a part of the show, especially while we're not live and we can't do callers, which ultimately I would like to do that, but we can't for the time being. But I do any topic you want, anything under the sun. So if I like it, I'm going to go for it. All right. Tracy from New York here in Long Island, really enjoying your show. I'm so thrilled to hear about your growing family. My husband and I were just wondering what is the status of all of Biden's illegal, as per the Supreme Court, student loan forgiveness. Any idea? Downloading your show now so I can listen to you in the morning on my drive. Thank you. Wishing you only success, Tracy from New York. Okay, so Biden is obsessed with student loan forgiveness. He's always wanted to do it. And I feel like at this point, it's become a bit of a white whale for him. So even though I don't really see a path for him to do much in the next 2 months, I actually predict he's going to try. Hopefully the Supreme Court will block it, because you can't just do blanket student loan forgiveness. And there's no political incentive for him to do it. He's mostly a shrewd political actor. And he's meeting with Trump right now, by the way. Let's say I'm going to cut in. I'm going to interrupt my own train of thought here, because I got Trump and Biden. Let's play some of this clip I got.
Make sure you're accommodated, what you need, and we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So
Good.
welcome
Thank you
back.
very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's in many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much.
It's a nice world today. They're being very cordial. They both look sharp, both well tailored. There's an incredible fire here. The visuals here are just, whoever built that fire, just teach me, please, if any of you are watching on the streams.
A transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Wow. That's a lot of screaming from the press. It's fun to watch. It's fun to watch because you see Biden, he's just back in politician mode. You know Biden was a big winner here. You know it. I'll be making this point for as long as you hear me on the air. This guy was, he was the absolute winner of the Democrat Party. He got away with bloody murder. The whole party was going to blame him. They pushed him out stupidly. That's part of the reason I didn't think they would do it. I didn't think they would push him out, and they did it. There was one guy, I got to pull this down, I think it was a Democrat from Vermont or something, he was making the point, the Democrats need to take the L in this election, just take the loss, because if they don't do it, then it's going to be total chaos, and now it is. And now they're totally rudderless. They don't know what to do. So he's got that toilet bowl grin, got his nice suit, and his legacy is looking a little bit better. Well, it's not great because he was bad president, but it's looking a little bit better today. But anyway, he probably wants to forgive some student loans, but he's mostly a political actor, and there's not really I feel like he's only going to do that if he feels like he's going to get something out of it. Maybe some of the universities that could end up employing him or employing his family members, maybe they want it. So, but hopefully the Supreme Court blocks it. And as that comes up, I will try to get you top tier information on it because I can do that. All right. Lou comments on Rumble. The schools controlled by left-wing teachers unions are the problem. It is way past time to disband all government employee unions, as both FDR and Truman opposed government employee unions as they will go on strike against the people and are a sewer pipe for Marxism and anti-science wokeism. You guys are so good. It's beautifully stated, aggressively stated, but entirely accurate. Public sector unions are the start of what's failing our children. Universities are bad. The government funding our schools are bad. Woke teachers are bad. But it all starts with the fact that you've got Democrats negotiating with Democrats for your money and programming their curricula based off of or curriculum, I guess, more appropriate, based off of the fact that we've enabled these public sector unions. It is a massive problem in this country, and it should get addressed, and any radical overhauls there I welcome. We haven't heard about any of them yet from Trump, but there is talk in the past that he wanted to disband the Department of Education. Again, I think that might rely on Congress, too, in order to be able to do that. But he's going to get my support if he tries it. All right, David Johnson comments, this is from YouTube. As a conservative, my belief is that entrenchment in the legislative branch is an integral part of the problem that plague American government. Is there any realistic way this can be changed? Is this something you believe should exist on the list of priorities? I'm wondering if entrenchment is, I think he's got to be talking about term limits here in Congress. Yeah, I'm for it at this point. I think people used to see going to Congress as a tour of duty. And now it's a way of being able to up your profile so you can make more money, or to just have power if you already have money. That's sort of the thing that's happening, is either you've already got money so you want power, or you're trying to figure out a way to get money so you get the power first so then you can get big time jobs. That's just not how it's supposed to be. We want people in there who are here to serve the country. And I think a little more of a rotation would be beneficial. I think people are in there way too long. And, it makes me think of John Thune. It's a perfect example. He's a guy, we had such high hopes for him when he was elected. I guess it was probably, I don't know, it's got to be, it was about 20, was it 3 or 4 terms ago? So like 20 odd years. I'll look it up exactly if I'm way off, but I think it's about right. We had really high hopes, handsome guy, smart, and he just turned into a McConnell guy. And now I'm trying to tell you all, I hope it's going to be okay, as opposed to the excitement when he first got elected. So that's what happens to people when you're in Washington too long. It's not healthy to be in Washington too long. I would like for the American people to have the wisdom to be able to vote people out, but people are busy and people aren't with the program. And sometimes it's worth reconsidering whether or not we're better off having basically permanent members of our Congress. And we're probably not. So I would absolutely hear an argument for some term limits. It's a great question, though. I like those ones where I can give you a take now, but you guys can work on me. Send me an email. Tell me why I'm right. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why you like what I'm doing, or maybe don't like what I'm doing, but I got a feeling you like it. Feels good. Feels good so far. Thanks everyone for watching the show. If you're watching it, and subscribing, if you're on audio, all that's good so you don't miss an episode. The Breitbart Fight Club today, Ken Klukowski gives me a deep dive on all of the lawfare against Trump. It is the most concise and brilliant synopsis of where we're at with lawfare that I've heard. So you're not going to want to miss that at the Breitbart Fight Club app. Thanks to our great producer, Misty. Prayers for Dennis Prager, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for listening.